Here's how to fix iOS 18 battery drain. Now, if you have an iPhone and you just installed iOS 18, but your battery life is running out really quickly, it's draining a lot quicker than it did in iOS 17, then I'll walk you through steps to get that fixed. But first, hit the subscribe button down below. It really helps me out. Thanks, guys. Now, the first thing you're going to do is head into your settings here, tap on General, and then Software Update. What you're going to check to see is make sure that the iOS 18 operating system has been fully installed. It doesn't say preparing installation or still downloading iOS 18. Essentially, sometimes the iOS operating systems, as it goes through the process of installing, it can get kind of hung up, and then that will cause your battery life to drain really quickly. But so keep in mind, I've installed to iOS 18, and if you're finding that your battery life is draining really quickly, this is somewhat on purpose by Apple when they first install a new operating system, but they get better at it over time. The reason for this is they built out iOS 18 to basically go hand in hand with the new iPhone 16, which has a lot higher performance than the iOS or the iPhone 15 or 14 or 13, whatever you may have. So keep in mind, to some degree, the iOS 18 is a resource hog. It uses more resources than iOS 17. And essentially, by default, that will use up your battery life more than previous iOS operating systems. However, over time, Apple does tend to get better at seeing why it uses up so much data, and they kind of ratchet that down. So essentially, the first thing I would recommend doing is just checking to see if there's an update on iOS 18. They usually offer an update within the first month or so of releasing the new operating system. And that usually a lot of times helps with battery life. So let's go back here, and there are a couple other things to check as well. Let's go into the App Store, tap on your name at the very top right. And then I would recommend just swiping down, and if there are any updates on apps, just install those updates, because potentially some of the apps on your iPhone could be operating under the assumption that you still have iOS 17, but updating them to the latest version will help make them compatible with your new operating system, iOS 18. Another thing we can do is go into the settings again and go back and tap on battery. Now, what you'll see on here for me is it says ongoing device setup. Your iPhone is completely set up, but it's basically running certain things in the background to help everything get up to iOS 18. Battery life and thermal performance may improve once this is finished. So keep in mind, when you first install iOS 18, it does a lot of stuff in the background that you don't necessarily see that'll take up your battery life. It'll drain really quickly. But once that's done, it should improve from there. Now, the next thing we can do is scroll down, and you're going to check to see what is using up so much data. If something is surprising on here, then you're basically going to tap on it and get an idea of why is this using up so much data. For instance, Safari or Apple News or Reddit. If there's something that you're not necessarily using on there, you can always go in and delete that app. But the next thing that I would recommend doing is going through the process of reducing or removing things that you don't use. So swipe down from the top right. If you're not necessarily using Bluetooth, you can always toggle that off. If you're not using Wi-Fi, you can toggle that off. That helps with your battery life. You can go back into settings here. And for instance, let's go to General and then Background App Refresh. This is a big culprit on battery life. If you want to use that, you can, but it will drain your battery quickly. I recommend switching that off for every single app. Now, let's also go back here, and there are other things that you can do to help reduce that battery drain over the day. Again, let's swipe down from the top right. A big battery drain is the screen. So you can always dim your screen a bit, and you can tap and hold on it, and you can choose to turn on night shift if you wanted to make it a bit more dim during the evening. That will again help your battery life. All of these things are fairly little things. Keep in mind, again, Apple improves this over time as they release new iOS 18 operating systems. It will help to improve this. But you can do stuff like AirDrop, and you can turn AirDrop off if you're not necessarily using it right now. You can do other things like you can go back And let's find where it says privacy and security and location services. Essentially, if you're not using location services, this is again tracking your phone where it might be and providing that information to apps. If you're not using that, I would recommend turning that feature off. So essentially what you're going to do is go through your entire phone and turn off things that you are not using. This helps to reduce your battery drain. Essentially, all of these apps that you might not using or features that you might not be using, you can turn them off, and that will slowly over time, with a bunch of those added on, help your battery life and help it last till the following day or till the evening when you can recharge it again. I hope this helps. If it did, hit the like button down below and leave a comment if you have any questions. Thanks, guys.